Hello, my dear students. I am Dr. Meera BK, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Zoology, Maharani Science College for Women, Bangalore 1. I welcome you for my today's online class on restriction endonucleases, also called restriction enzymes. Restriction endonucleases are the enzymes that produce internal cuts or cleavage in the DNA molecules. To begin with, we shall know what are endonucleases. AAC stands for enzyme, then nuclei means nucleus, endo means inside. So endonucleases are enzymes that produce internal cuts, what do we call as cleavage in DNA molecules. Many endonucleases cleave these DNA molecules at random sites, but one particular class of endonucleases cut the DNA only within specific sites or near those sites which have specific base sequences, and such endonucleases are called restriction endonucleases, popularly called REN, and the sites recognized by them are called recognition sequences or recognition sites. These recognition sequences are different and specific for different restriction enzymes. These restriction endonucleases are indispensable for DNA cloning and sequencing. They serve as molecular tools for cutting DNA molecules at particular predetermined sites, which is the basic requirement in RDT experiments. Hence, restriction endonucleases are popularly called molecular scissors. There are three types of restriction endonucleases, and we classify them as type 1, type 2 and type 3. Let us see each type in brief and then know which particular type of REN is made use of in RDT experiments. To begin with, type 1 restriction endonucleases. These are complex endonucleases. They have three different types of subunits. And require magnesium ions, ATP and SAM. SAM stands for S-adenosyl methionine. These three things for DNA cleavage. Further, their recognition sites are complex, about 15 base pairs, and they cleave the DNA about 1000 base pairs away from the 5' end of the sequence TCA located within the recognition site. EcoK, EcoB are the enzymes which belong to this category. So they are quite complex. 3 subunits require too many things for catalyzing the reaction, and they don't cut at specific sites. So this group of REN are type 1 restriction endonucleases, and normally we don't prefer them to use in RDT experiments. Then coming to the type 3, these are less complex. They have only 2 subunits and they require magnesium ions and ATP for DNA cleavage, as you see in case of type 1, but SAM stimulates the enzymatic activity without being an absolute requirement. It need not be necessarily present for the action to take place. And DNA cleavage occurs distal to the recognition site, but only 25 to 27 base pairs away from the site. So, compared to type 1, type 3 run are better, but still we don't use them in RDT experiments. Then, type 2 restriction endonucleases are much simpler in the sense contain only one subunit and magnesium ions alone are enough for DNA cleavage. DNA cleavage occurs at specific sites within or just adjacent to the recognition site. That way, type 2 restriction endonucleases have more advantage compared to type 1 and type 3. Therefore, these are most useful ones for the site-specific digestion of DNA molecules. So, normally we make use of type 2 RE for restriction mapping and gene cloning in view of their cleavage at specific sites. So, this is about types of restriction endonucleases. After knowing the definition and types, let us now understand what exactly I do mean by recognition sites. The recognition sequences in case of RUN form palindromes with rotational symmetry. Palindromes with rotational symmetry, please understand. In a palindrome, what happens is the base sequence in the second half of a DNA strand is the mirror image of the sequence in the first half. As you are looking in the diagram, we have here GAA, AGG, GAA, AGG. So, this is a palindrome. The base sequence in the second half of the DNA strand is the mirror image of the sequence in the first half. Consequently, the complementary DNA strand of a double helix also shows same situation. This is palindrome sequence. But what exactly I mean by palindromes with rotational symmetry? In a palindrome with rotational symmetry, the base sequence in the first half of one strand of a double helix is the mirror image of the second half of its complementary strand. Please understand. In a palindrome with rotational symmetry, the base sequence in the first half of the strand of a DNA double helix is the mirror image of the second half of its complementary strand. You can see here GAA from 5' end. You read from the other end in the other strand, it is GAA. That's what I exactly mean. So, thus in such palindromes, the base sequence in both the strands of a DNA complex reads the same when read from the same end, either 5' or 3' of both the strand. You can see GAA-TTC if you read from 5' end to 3' end. If you read from the other end, GAA-TTC. This is what exactly I meant by palindromes with rotational symmetry. Now, most of these recognition sequences of restriction endonucleases exhibit this feature of palindromes with rotational symmetry. Now, majority of type 2 REs recognize sequences of normally 4 to 6 nucleotides in length. 4 to 6 nucleotides in length, but some may have 7 to 8 base recognition sites. The sequences are predominantly GC rich, that means guanine and cytosine rich. Now, so you can look at this table. This indicates the name of the restriction endonuclease and its microbial origin and its recognition site with two-fold symmetry. Say for example, here I have shown you EcoR1. EcoR1 is extracted from the bacterium Escherichia coli and the recognition site is GAA-TTC. That means in a DNA molecule where all you get the sequence like this GAA and TTC, if that site happens to be the recognition site for the enzyme EcoR1. Then students, you must be looking at the arrow marks what I have shown. Say for example, one arrow mark I have shown next to 5' end G, another one from the other side 5' end. That exactly tells how the restriction endonuclease cuts or brings about cleavage in the DNA molecule. Little later I'll explain to you in detail. You can see here where it is producing 5' and 3' overhangs, but in the next one, say another enzyme HIND2, which is extracted from Haemophilus influenzae, its recognition sequence is GT, PY, PU, AC. PY I mean any pyrimidine, PU I mean any purine. Okay? And now you just look at the arrow marks. They are not to the sides. They are exactly in the center and at the same point. Right? They produce blunt ends after restriction digestion. I'll let you know little later how important it is to know how exactly each restriction endonuclease brings about cuts in DNA molecules. So in this table, I have given about few restriction endonucleases, their source, that is microbial origin, and please note that most of these restriction endonucleases are extracted from bacteria. And in the next column, I have shown their recognition site, and I have also given a hint so as to how exactly they are going to cut the DNA molecule. Okay? Next. So now let us understand the cleavage pattern. In addition to the recognition sequence, okay, the nature of DNA cleavage, those arrow marks I was talking about, you know. So the nature of DNA cleavage is of paramount importance to the users of restriction endonuclease because the nature of the ends of DNA fragments generated by the Ren digestion determine the suitability of the DNA fragments for subsequent procedures. Okay? Now, all restriction endonucleases cleave their DNA substrates to form 5' phosphates and 3' hydroxyl termini on each strand. This is by rule it happens. But how they produce the cuts? The cuts are of two types. Either they produce staggered ends, ಜೋತಾಡೋದು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳ್ತೀವಲ್ಲ ಅದು staggered ends, or they produce blunt ends. Blunt ends are also called even ends or flush ends. Now with examples, let me show you what exactly I mean by staggered ends, what exactly I meant by blunt ends. Most of the enzymes produced staggered cuts in which two strands of a DNA double helix are cleaved at different locations. You can make out here in the diagram different locations, and when they cut at different locations, they generate protruding ends. They generate protruding ends, either 3' protrusions or 5' protrusions. That is, one strand of the double helix extends some bases beyond the other. Let us look into the example here. I have the enzyme EcoR1. It is a restriction enzyme. It recognizes the sequence GAA-TTC. Wherever in DNA segment, DNA molecule, you find this sequence, that is the target site for the enzyme EcoR1. So I have represented here a double helix DNA strand with EcoR1 target site. So 5' GAA-TTC 3'. And the other hand, from this side, if you read, it is exactly 5' GAA-TTC 3' end. Now, when you give EcoR1 to a DNA molecule containing this sequence, It cleaves the way I have shown in the next diagram. See here, in the first strand, there is hydroxyl group and it cuts at G, and at 5' end, AATTC is overhanging. That part is single stranded. In the other strand of the double stranded DNA helix, it is exactly the opposite. So here EcoR1 produces 5' overhangs because that part of the single strand which staggers, is in the direction of 5'. This is what exactly I meant by staggered ends, especially 5' staggered ends. Okay, then due to the palindromic nature of the target sites, the two protruding ends generated by such a cleavage by a given restriction endonuclease have complementary base pairs. You can make out complementary base pairs, and whenever there is complementary base pairs, they readily pair with each other. They can always form hydrogen bonds. Again, they can join. That's what I exactly meant. Such ends are called cohesive ends or sticky ends. Cohesive ends or sticky ends. Why I am telling this is, an important consequence of this property is that when fragments generated by a single restriction endonuclease from different DNAs, say for example, I have two sets of DNA molecules. Both the sets have the same recognition sequence GAATTC, and for both the DNA molecules I give EcoR1 only. Alright. So the nature of staggered ends produced are exactly the same, and when you mix these two things from different DNA sources, they readily join together because they would have produced cohesive ends or sticky ends. Therefore, this property of restriction endonuclease is of great value for the construction of recombinant DNAs. My dear students, please do understand and note down this point, because in next coming my classes I need to highlight on this particular property. Now, if a restriction endonuclease cleaves each strand of the DNA on 3' side of the axis of dyad symmetry, then you get 3' overhangs. In earlier case, EcoR1 case, we saw 5' overhangs. Here I have one more restriction endonuclease, PST1. Its name is PST1. How are they named? I'll let you know the principles of nomenclature of REN little later. Here I have the enzyme PST1. It has the target site CTGCAG. The other hand, CTGCAG. Okay. Now look at the arrow marks here. They don't cut at 5' ends, but the enzyme cuts at 3' end. As a result, the cleavage product will have 3' overhangs. Here also the end product is staggered only, but it is not 5', but it is 3' overhangs. Thus, EcoR1 produces 5' overhangs, whereas PST1 produces 3' overhangs. So these are two things which you have to understand when you talk about staggered ends. Then, let me tell you one more case where there are few restriction endonucleases which cut both the strands of a DNA molecule at the same site. No staggered ends are produced. They cut at the same site so that the resulting termini or ends have blunt ends or flush ends, in which the strands are cut at the same point, like the way you cut a cake. Here I have one more restriction endonuclease, He3. Okay, He3 has the recognition sequence GGCC. From 5' end, if you read GGCC, in the other strand GGCC. Please look at the arrow marks here. Both the arrow marks are in the straight line and they cut the molecule exactly into two halves, right? Such ends are called blunt ends. Such ends are called blunt ends. Okay. Now, so you can see here the product of such digestion. Alright. So now you have understood the cleavage patterns. One is staggered end or blunt end. If it is staggered end, it will be either 5' overhang or 3' overhang, depending upon which particular restriction endonuclease you are using. Now, it is the time for me to tell you one more concept, isoscissomers. Isoscissomers. You must have heard of isomers, not isomers, isoscissomers. Let me tell you what exactly I meant. See, there are few restriction endonucleases, alright, which have been isolated and characterized from different bacterial strains, but they share common recognition sequences. They share common recognition sequences, but their cleavage pattern is different. Cleavage pattern is different. They identify same recognition sites, but they cleave differently. Such enzymes, such restriction endonucleases are called isoscissomers. See, I have here two enzymes, XMA1 and SMA1, SMA1. These are two different restriction endonucleases, but they recognize the same sequence. Their target sequence is same. CCE, CCC, GGG, a hexanucleotide. Okay. Wherever this target sequence is there in a DNA molecule, both of them will recognize. If so, what is the difference? Look at in the next diagram, the way the XMA1 cuts the DNA, whereas SMA1 cuts the DNA. Here, SMA1 produces staggered ends, whereas SMA1 produces blunt ends. So, therefore, I call XMA1 and SMA1 as isoscissomers. They have same target sequence, but the way they cleave the DNA molecule are different. Okay? This is one concept I wanted to tell you, right? Now, so far I have taught you the definition of restriction endonuclease and why they are called molecular scissors, and in the types of restriction endonucleases, type 1, type 2 and type 3, and which particular type we use in recombinant DNA technology experiments. Then I have taught you recognition sites, that is palindromes with rotational symmetry, and then I have given the example of few restriction endonucleases. Then I have taught you the various types of cleavage patterns. Then I have taught you the isoscissomers. Now, I have to teach you something else. All the time I have been telling the names of restriction endonucleases, but how are they named? How they are named? That means you should know the principles on which any restriction endonuclease is named. So, nomenclature of restriction endonucleases. What are the general principles? First principle says the first letter of the name of the genus in which a given enzyme is discovered is written in capital. Genus means here most of the times bacterial species. Okay. So, the first letter of the name of the genus in which a given enzyme is extracted is written in the capital. Say for example, if I write ECO, capital E stands for its source. It tells us that this particular enzyme has been extracted from Escherichia coli. That's what I meant. First principle. So, first letter is always in capital. It will tell us the genus of the bacterial strain from which the enzyme is extracted. Then, this is followed by first two letters of the specific name. First two letters of the specific name of the bacterial strain. Okay. These letters are generally written in italics. ECO, if I say, E stands for first letter of generic name. CO stands for first two alphabets of specific name. So ECO is extracted from Escherichia coli. HIN is extracted from Haemophilus influenzae. HPA is extracted from Haemophilus parainfluenzae, like this. So these are the two principles, and rest of it we shall know. The third principle, the strain or type is depicted as subscript. The strain or the type of the bacterial strain is depicted as subscript. Say for example, if I write ECO K, I will write it as subscript because that will tell us the strain from which particular Escherichia coli the enzyme has been extracted. So if the enzyme is coded by a plasmid, by chance if the enzyme is coded by a plasmid, the plasmid name is written as a subscript. So ECO or ER1, right? Now this is the third rule. So strain or type identification is depicted as subscript instead of strain. By chance if the enzyme is extracted from the plasmid present in the bacterial cell, its name is written as subscript. This is the third rule. Then fourth rule, when an organism produces more than one enzyme, say you would have extracted 10 restriction endonucleases from the same, they are identified by sequential Roman numerals. They are identified by sequential Roman numerals. For example, the different enzymes produced by Haemophilia influenzae with the strain RD are named as HIND2, HIND3, etc. like this. Here H is Haemophilia, IN stands for influenza, H for generic name, IN for specific name, D that is the strain which is written as subscript, and Roman numeral number 2 is the second enzyme to be extracted from Haemophilia influenzae. If it is HIND3, that is third restriction endonuclease extracted from Haemophilia influenzae. Okay. Then next rule says all restriction endonucleases are designated by the general symbol R. General symbol R, which is prefixed to their names. Say if I write R ECO RI, here R stands for restriction endonuclease, capital E stands for the first name of the generic name, first alphabet of the generic name Escherichia, CO stands for the first two alphabets of the specific name coli, RI stands for the plasmid from which R stands for the plasmid from which it is extracted. Roman numeral 1 tells you that this is the first enzyme. So correctly if I am writing ECO R1, I should write the way I have written here. Capital R, capital E, small c, small o, and R and 1 as subscript. In the same way, R HIND3, R for restriction endonuclease, H for Haemophilus, IN for influenza, D for either the strain or the plasmid, and Roman numeral 3, like this. But though this is the correct way of writing the restriction endonuclease, in practice we do follow certain simplifications. Those simplifications are like this. The subscripts due to the strain or the plasmid names are ordinarily written on line. Though the rule says you have to write it as subscript, but normally we write in the same straight line. So RI is no more written, R1 is no more written as subscript, it is written on the same line. So also 3, hint 3, D3 is written on the same line like this. And normally the prefix R is not used where the context makes it very clear that the enzyme under reference is invariably a restriction endonuclease. Okay. So these are all the principles based on which we name the restriction endonucleases. So my dear students, These are all the things which you have to learn when you study about restriction endonucleases. Stay blessed. Thank you for your patient hearing.